kind of gone, wow. It was that wow that is kind of like you wonder if it's just silly or if they find actual relevance in it. But I feel like in the conversations I've had since the wow moments, they're actually doing pretty smart things with this like idea I showed them. So that's kind of where I'm headed here. Let me just tell you that I'm going to say some things about why I do OER or open pedagogy. Then I'm going to look at a very specific example of using AI in the context of being an educator. And then I'm going to tell you where I think I'm going next, I hope. Um, so number one, the ground rules here are we're all equal, share alike, please. If you have questions, you can just interrupt me if you'd like at any point in time. You can also ask questions in the chat and I will try to get them. I will get them right away. But I'd love for this to be a conversation rather than a presentation. I have, I think, 7 different websites that I am going to paste into the chat at the end of this session. I don't want you, they all have like really, I'll show you some of them, but I'm not going to link to them or whatever till the end of the session. Just because I know if I get a link somewhere, sometimes I don't have the ability to control myself and I go listen and do that thing rather than listening to the presenter. So I'll give you all these things near the end. If you have to go early, let me know. I'll paste them in there so you can get them in advance. Any questions before we start? I see we have a lot of educators in some fashion. This is good. Anybody have anything to share? Anything they want to see? Okay. This is from 1974. I made this. It's all the books that I read, right? With teacher comments on it. 1974, right? This was made shortly, well, around that time. And it's it's about snakes, about the bayou in the bayous of Louisiana. Who knew, right? 30 years, 25 years later, I was taking middle school students wandering around rocks, and we would climb up them and they would write about their stories. And it wasn't just one kid's story, it was like, you know, my class stories. And we used what's called a saddle stitch stapler to put these together, so it seems like it's an official thing. Every student got one. That was pretty amazing. A couple of years later, I was teaching Photoshop at a community college, and the students were producing really cool portfolios of their work at the end of the class, right? The reason I show you those things is because there is something deep inside of me that wants to express stuff. I was a poet before I met my wife, and then all my poems came true, so I didn't need to write them down anymore. At least that's what I say. You know, I feel like we all are brilliant and have things to contribute, and it's scary because you don't want your face on YouTube, or you don't like the way your voice sounds, or you don't think your art's good enough, or your poems. But I do believe that we all have a message, and it's amazing and beautiful. And we live in a time where, of course, we have the most amazing and remarkable ability to communicate, but sometimes it's just that carbon copy email that goes to 1 million people that nobody reads because they got 50 other ones, right? So how do we express ourselves in a world that has so many people expressing themselves, and we want to filter out what's good? Some days it might come down just to like, I have a personal item that I have kept from my world, right? And, you know, 50 years down the road, you get to look at it and go, wow, what a life I've lived, and then whatever ever happens next, right? I say all this because in my work, I have done what is called open pedagogy. And the example I'm going to show you today about student evaluations and student feedback about that class that course was delivered in the context of open pedagogy. And in the process of doing open pedagogy, we created OER, right? Open Educational Resources. So, and that's kind of the gist of this whole thing, but I just want to make sure that you see and kind of my ethos around teaching is definitely backed with something I would consider open pedagogy. I'm gonna share my screen here briefly, and just so that you don't think I haven't done anything beforehand, this is one of the things I'll share with you. This is the story I'm going to tell you. But I want to go back further as a high school teacher. This was like 25 years ago. I was having students share their work on the internet, right? This was from around 2008, maybe or so. I can't remember exactly. But I was teaching courses, this one out of WordPress. I was teaching courses for teachers in Blogspot. Goes back to 2009. So all the students in the class, which were largely educators, were sharing their work. And so my sort of vibe around teaching is that, like, I definitely have um, uh, a background in open pedagogy and a belief that students have something to say, and that through the process of them creating it and sharing it, I know things like oftentimes students say things to other students in a way that I can't. I also know that sometimes students listen to other students in a way that they don't listen to me. So all of that stuff is sort of wrapped around with how I go about teaching. So that's the context that my course that I taught was delivered in. Uh, what I um, Good. What I want to share is kind of the story of how this happened. So. You probably all, as educators, have been given feedback from students at the end of the semester or the quarter. You may not know, if you don't talk about this often, a lot of the faculty I've talked to for 20 years don't like those end of quarter or end of semester surveys so much. Um, they, and I don't know why, actually, but I can imagine there are lots of reasons. Sometimes they feel like it's some competition. Sometimes they feel like if their numbers are too low, they won't get tenure. Sometimes they feel like that one student that they tried so hard to reach, even though it's an anonymous piece of feedback, they're crushed because the student said really mean things about their course. Um, there's a lot of reasons people may not like those end of course feedback forms. If you're a teacher like myself who has long sort of done mid-course feedback and optimally before the middle of the course, so just before the middle of the course, so that you can hear from the students what's working, what's not, and you can make changes to your course while you're teaching it so that those students can actually feel the results of the things they have to share about the course. That's one thing. If you're like me and you believe that students need to kind of reflect at some point on their performance in the course, the things they learned, the uh, challenges they faced, and the story that they have of overcoming those things, and that they're doing that in writing. I have been a person who's done mid-quarter surveys who always leverages sort of this final reflection on the course. And then, of course, I also get these like institutional PDFs that have, numbers and the feedback from the students at the official one at the end of the quarter. So um, I don't know how you get those things. I don't know how you feel about them. But what I know is that they worry faculty sometimes, and I often wonder like where they lead, right? Some of these things I do know from personal interactions with faculty, like I did this because students said this. but sometimes I just don't know. So my overall vibe with all that was it it's worrisome and challenging. So one day I ran into an AI tool that creates a song. Uh, you can feed it the lyrics, you can feed it, parts of things, but I ran into it literally as I was sitting there looking at some of the feedback from my students mid-quarter last year. And I don't know why, but I thought, I wonder what their feedback would sound like if it were a song. And this is where my story actually begins, is what if you received the feedback from your students in a song rather than numbers or graphs, Likert scales, and short narratives? Who knows, right? I really don't know. But I did that, and it was interesting. Maybe nothing else. I will try here real quick to play a piece of this for you. Let me see if you can hear this very well. I'll try not to make it too loud here. So this is the tool. It's called Suno.
Sun is shining bright today, feeling irie in the air. Got more feedback coming in. The students show they care.
All right. I mean, it goes on and on. I'll share that link. You can listen to the whole thing if you can stand it. So that's where this story starts, and thankfully it gets a little more intellectual than that. But I think it's important to wonder about you know I was a high school English teacher, said I was a poet. Like, I'm interested in the communication between words and people. I know that audio, text delivered in an audio book feels or can be experienced different than the text. So, I feel like my idea that, well, how do we hear this stuff differently if it's in a song or audio? Is it going to make us listen to it more intently, right? I don't know. Certainly in the reggae song, maybe not. Not sure. However, I definitely learned that it made me want to play more. About a week or two after that event happened, I ran into what was then like a newish feature in NotebookLM, and it made this podcast thing or an audio overview first of my survey. And right then, I was like, I'm onto something. It's the audio piece, it's how it's delivered, it's the two people talking about something important to me. Um, and and this is a continuation of the story, but it truly started for me just with like the notion that, hey, what if I took my evaluations from students and heard them rather than read them? The end. That was kind of the beginning. So I'm going to share with you and go through Google Notebook LM briefly. I'm going to just show you sort of some of the pieces of this. So if you have not seen Notebook LM, essentially on the far left side, you have sources, right? So these are all the things that your tool is going to use, that your notebook is going to use to pull information from. It has in the center, the biggest column, it has kind of this normal looking chat feature. And then on the right side, and this is making, on your phone, it looks a little bit different, but if your window is wide enough on your browser, it will show them in columns like this. On the right side is this studio. It has this audio tool. It has, just as of like a week and a half ago, the video overview. It can create a mind map, and then it creates like a briefing doc, a study guide, FAQ, and a timeline. So Um, this is the interface for Google Notebook. And when I started this, all I put in there was the anonymized feedback from my students in the mid-quarter survey. And that was it. And it generated this amazing little 12-minute podcast of two people talking about my class and the feedback the students had given me. And if you have used NotebookLM, it does something that, or at least it seems to, the algorithm seems to say nice things about what's going on, be a little more critical, and then close with nice things, right? The old sandwich feedback thing. Um, so and I didn't even know you could prompt it at that point. Like it was, I had just learned it, but I felt good about my evaluations. And I have to say that, thank goodness, like I got good evaluations in this particular class, right? So they were saying nice things. And it's really weird to hear nice things, like these robot people saying nice things about you and your teaching. Um, that was actually really pleasant. Um, so over the course of a couple weeks, I started thinking and adding more things to the sources. For example, the course was online, so I added the Quality Matters standards. We talked about the ISTE standards, International Society for Teaching Educators or something like that. So I put the ISTE standards, which are about both teachers and learners, and bulleted lists of items that they feel need to be achieved. I added like my course description, and then I kept adding things, and as I was adding things to it, it just kept getting more detailed. And I was asking it questions like, how can I make my class address more high impact practices? Because I had added some writing on high impact practices. I added a video about open pedagogy. And it just became more detailed. One of the podcasts was 44 minutes long. And I'm going to stop right there with that comment, because let's just think of the average teacher who gets their normal every year end of class feedback form, and they sit and they look at it. How long do they look at it for? What do they think? What do they do? Right? I listened to feedback about my class and its relationship to pretty good things like Quality Matters or high impact practices for 44 minutes. I listened to the whole thing. And that was truly like a lot of time for me, you know? Plus, as an ongoing endeavor, this whole thing has been, I mean, I've listened to a lot of feedback about my class. And in my work as an instructional designer, I just love it when faculty think about improving their course a lot, right? So I'm kind of using this thing as a way for faculty to wonder about it. I have since learned that the faculty who I've kind of shared this with are doing other things with it. Like one of the first comments I got when somebody added their course description and the feedback from students at the end of quarter feedback was, this would make a great advertisement for my course. And she sent it to me. And sure enough, like 3 minutes of these two people talking about her course, how much the students liked it and what it was about. It was like, wow, you could put that little podcast like on a website, on an email, you could attach it to an email or whatever, and it would be like a great marketing tool for your course, right? So that's kind of like the long story of what I've done with this. And before I kind of look more closely at some of the tools in Notebook, like maybe more technically, I definitely just invite you to You have any questions? Sorry, I was talking for a long time. Nobody has any questions? Let's put, if you think this idea has value, let's put a 1 in the chat. If you think it's less than valuable, let's put a 2. At least I'll know I'm on the right track. Okay. Yeah. I mean, I think it does too, honestly. Like I'm gonna share all of this with you, so you'll be able to see everything I've just shown you. Okay. Uh, that seemed to work as an interactive way for Todd to like interact with all of you. So let's try that again. Here's the question. Have you used the podcasting feature in NotebookLM? 1 if you have, 2 if you have not. Okay. Okay, good. So I'll show this to you. So some of you will see this as something new. Some of you have already seen this. For those of you that gave a 2, the next question is, have you also used the new video feature? My guess is probably yes. 1 for no, 2 for yes. Because that just came out like a week and a half ago. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, it leaves a lot to be desired in the world of PowerPoint design. However, it's pretty similar, and you can prompt it, right? Okay, so for all of those of you that have not used NotebookLM, I kind of went through the basic interface. Now I'm going to show you a little bit more of the technical pieces. And again, please ask questions if you have them. So I'm going to continue to use my plan here. You'll be able to see this at the end of the session when I put the link in there. So as just in review, the right side is sources. So here are the types of things you can add. You can add things from your Google Drive. You can add links to websites or YouTube videos. You can upload PDFs, whatever, or you can just paste text into it. You can also go out and it will look for sources kind of based on your title or a question. So that is the interface for adding the sources. Again, the centerpiece here is simply a chat tool, right? It gives you some prompts like down here, but you can you can ask it anything. I'm just going to go with the suggested one here. Takes a minute, spits out some information, again, based on the things you have given it over here in the sources. So that's the chat tool in the center. On the right side, you have these options I went through just a moment ago. Oh, while I'm sharing this was kind of an interesting thing. I very much align my teaching philosophies around a few people, more modernly, maybe Neil Postman, but back in the day, people like John Dewey or Kurt Hahn. I don't know if Kurt Hahn was the guy who created Outward Bound and sort of community-based learning or service learning rather, and adventure or expeditionary learning, close to my heart. So I added things like John Dewey's theory of teaching. Carl Rogers is somebody else who I deeply align my more humanistic, groovy thinking around teaching. It was so interesting for Todd to sit there and hear these robots say, this is how your teaching aligns with your heroes in the world of education, right? How rewarding is that? Again, sorry, the middle is the chat feature. And on the right are these items. And so over here, you can see that it does a briefing doc, a study guide, FAQs. One of the links I'm going to share here at the end of this is like a playground that I have created, and it has some of those things utilized in other ways with other tools. So I'm combining things that I'm getting from NotebookLM with Genially or PictoChart or some other tool that creates something. Um, First, I just want to show you the audio item. So this is the interactive uh, version of the audio overview. So you can click play. I hope
Welcome
it
to the Deep
works.
Dive, your shortcut to being truly well informed. Today, we're digging into something really vital in our super fast paced world. How do we actually learn? And how do we teach effectively when there's just so much information, so much tech changing all the time? How do we get past just consuming?
That's a huge question. It really challenges educators, learners, everyone. And we
So in this version, and you see the little join button at the bottom, and this is not, well, this is pretty amazing. When I first did this, I just was like, wow. And I'm going to show you the wow because it's kind of funny, but it shows how well it does this in a way. The first question I'm going to ask it about might be, how does this class align with David Wiley's ideas about teaching? Pretty generic. The second question I'm going to ask it is completely unrelated, and this is where it's kind of funny, like the reggae song. I'm going to ask him like why my cat is running up the walls or something silly, but just so you can kind of see this interaction, I'll ask it kind of a real question first.
we've got a really interesting case study today that kind of dives right into that, offering some pretty cool answers.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, hey there, what's up?
Hi, my name is Todd, and I would like to know how this class aligns with David Wiley's thoughts about teaching.
Hi, Todd. That's a fantastic question, and actually, it's a perfect lead-in to what we're talking about today.
Yeah, that's really uncanny because David Wiley's work, especially his concept of open pedagogy, is absolutely central to how this course, BHH 515.
Okay, my second question here about the cats is unrelated, but what's interesting is to hear how they recover from my completely unrelated question, right?
Was designed.
What's fascinating here is that the course intentionally aligned with Wiley's core ideas, particularly.
Oh, yeah, uh-huh.
My name is Todd again. Can you tell me why my cat is running up the wall?
Hi, Todd. That's a fun question, and while we'd love to help with your cat's parkour skills, that's a bit outside our expertise here on the Deep Dive.
Yeah, we're definitely more in the realm of human learning and technology than feline acrobatics today.
But we appreciate you chiming in. It's always
Feline acrobatics. That's pretty funny. And it's like different every time I hear it. I mean, every time it makes this all up. So, yeah, pretty silly. So, I know, right? Pretty crazy. You can ask it about how to improve your assignments. You can ask it how to meet various standards in QM. You can ask it whatever you want, right? I'm going to pause there with the silliness of the cat question, and yet the sort of wild amazingness of the voices there, and see if there's any questions or if anybody would like to come on camera for a moment and say something so far. I should have like a mid-session evaluation break. How's it going so far? I need the response rate to be over 1% or 20%. So Yun asks, how do students like it? So in my case, I was teaching a class about pedagogy and teaching. They were amazed. I think Tracy said it best, kind of mind blown. The tool itself is like remarkable, right? Where it can address your cat running up the wall question and whatever. but you know, it's in how it gets used, right? You could ask it silly questions all day, but it's like, and for me, again, my students weren't faculty who are getting kind of, you know, evaluated by students. So, you know, this is one thing I've sort of learned about my experience in AI learning communities here over the last couple of years is that a lot of us are using AI to build a thing for teaching, like a rubric, for example, right? I think I'm approaching it a little more meta or a little larger scale than that. Like, how is my teaching practice in general? You know, or using things like QM to identify where I can improve my overall course, not a rubric or a specific assignment. Yeah, so here at the University of Washington, we don't even have Notebook turned on in our university Google accounts, much less integrated in any fashion into Canvas. You can, I mean, as you'll see, you'll be able to see this thing when I put the link in the chat. You can make it open so anybody can get to it, and you can make it collaborative, right? So that's a good one. Here, let me show you this. So imagine, and this goes, let me stay on track with how does it work for teachers? Because while I love to teach and I love my students, my main gig, you know, they pay me $1 a week to help faculty improve their teaching. So my audience typically is faculty. And in that context, I'm try really hard. I try to keep on the track of you get feedback from students on how to make your class better. How do you utilize that? How do you hear that? How do you implement that? That's what kind of this session is mostly focused on. Dang, I forgot what I was. No, Diana, it does not get integrated into the recording. Yeah, so you could, yeah, okay, let me answer a couple questions here. No, it doesn't integrate to Canvas. It's in all of your personal Google accounts. You can do everything I'm doing right now in your personal Google account. Trying to figure out how to apply it to my work that I do. You can upload your syllabus and you can just let them go crazy talking about your syllabus. But you could also, along with your syllabus, upload your colleges or divisions, goals and objectives. If the school has larger kind of goals and objectives for what you're doing. If it's an online class, you can upload your syllabus and the Quality Matters standards and see how those things align. Yeah, maybe let me go through this list just real quick because that's a good question. What do you put in it that's going to give you the best value? So things that I put in it were all my announcements for the course. I put in all of their final reflections on the course. I put in the ISTE standards. I put in a ChatGTP review of the mid-quarter like Likert scale questions. I put in my official UW course evaluation. I put in a video that was the class introduction. I put in the course description and objectives. I put in just the raw mid-quarter survey info. The behavioral health program goals and objectives, an article about care and inclusion, Carl Rogers theory, some writing on high impact practices. You know, so these you can kind of see an overview of one of my favorite books on teaching. That was funny, like Teaching as a Subversive Activity. Probably says a lot about me. Yes. Oh, I know what I was going to say. Yeah, you can add people to the notebook. So imagine, you know, you can share it with people, right? So you can give them specific types of access, right? So that's an interesting piece of this. If you're working collaboratively with somebody, you could create one of these notebooks and collaboratively add the resources, collaboratively create items. Yeah. You could add your peer. So interestingly, so here's one of the things a faculty member said was, I wish I would have had this when I was writing my tenure package. Because what she had done was add a whole bunch of evaluations from the same course and asked it to find trends in her teaching or themes in her teaching. And the way it kind of spoke about those or wrote about those was, you know, pretty interesting. She thought that was, she probably could have thought of some of those on her own, but you know how AI is, it just stated it in a sort of different way. I mean, one of the things you can say is use modern language around pedagogy to create an evaluation of my course, right? That's right. Yeah. And one of the tools, so I think I shared this in Maha's session, and I don't even remember what tool it was, but it sort of the whole idea came from this actually was how can you use AI to map school level objectives, course objectives, and then various assignment LO learning objectives, right? How can you map all those things we did it with sticky notes and lines on the chalkboard back in the day, but yeah. Okay, so I'm going to show you just the other little pieces of this tool, and then I'm going to be done. Any other questions in there? Okay. So on the right side where this studio area is kind of where all the fun is, or at least that these tools. The video tool here, you can customize it. So you can ask it to focus on specific things. Those videos look like this, I hope.
Today, we're going to pull back the curtain on a truly fascinating and, well, pretty unconventional college course. It's called BHLTH 515, and its story might just change how you think about what a classroom can be. So,
yeah, sounds pretty exciting, right? You can see this is like 6 minutes long. So, I mean, like it goes on and on about the class I taught, you know, like, wow. So that is the video overview. And this literally just came out like a week and a half ago or something. It was released to the public. The mind map here, here's kind of how this looks, right? And this is not the best, I don't think, but it is interesting how it links things together. So course overview, I mean, this is obviously the class. It's kind of very webby interface, right? You can drag it around. The course thing has all of these items, right? It tells you who the teacher was, how long the class was, I don't know. And then it identifies what you're looking for and it will talk about it over here. So I clicked just now on course overview, and here is kind of a summary of what's happening in that class based on all of these things, right? So that's the mind map feature. The various reports. So I don't know which of these down here is what. So I'll just generate one again here. So the briefing doc is kind of an overview. Oh, this is the study guide. Sorry. So it gives you, and this is where, you know, I love taking pieces of one thing and putting them, messing around with them in another environment. For those of you that use Quizlet, it does have already like its own AI stuff going on that's pretty remarkable, but you can also prompt it with information, say from here, stuff that's based on your sources. And so you can create some of those definitions, some of the, I mean, these are all sort of I mean, this is all really interesting because so many of these things are things like that I just super believe in and happily are visible in the work I get to do as a teacher. Um, the timeline is probably sort of the least useful in this case. It would probably be really helpful if this was like the history of something, something, something. It's not that interesting to see like, you know, when the class was taught and all that. The FAQ page is also kind of interesting and could be used, say, for creating flashcards if the content was, well, even in this, I did use it to make Quizlet cards. Let's see what's in the chat. The video part. Sorry. Oh, yeah. Thanks, Philip. Okay, so those are the things I have to share. That is what happened. I received my mid-quarter feedback at about the same time. I found this thing that would make a song out of any lyrics I put in there. So I generated lyrics based on my course feedback. I put it in this thing. Rather than country song or pop, I picked reggae. I could switch that up if I preferred one of those other genres. I made a song. It was funny. A couple weeks later, I'm using NotebookLM, and I'm like, what if I feed this podcast thing my student evaluations? And I did. And so that made me keep thinking about my class, although I was sort of laughing and playing with the tool, but it made me think about my course. I have made improvements to my course as a result of using this. One, which was interesting, was like students felt like I did not give them enough guidance on what to do for the tools. And I don't know, I thought I did. I gave them examples, but I guess the examples were not quite enough. So with the last thing I want to do is just show you the class. It's linked again into this stuff, but this was the class I taught. I know this is, and this goes back more to OER, more back to open pedagogy, right? So this is the home page. Rather than teaching this class in a blogging type environment like would be my sort of preference, I challenged myself and tried to teach it out of Google Sites, which I did. Everybody was told it's open. Everybody was told that they were doing stuff openly on the internet. They all thought that was fine. A couple people kept a few things like their journals private. This is the end result where I changed the landing page or the home page to be all the students, right? And what they did was stuff like this, right? Your sort of portfolio sort of things. They had a teaching philosophy that they had to write. But the course, as they were experiencing it, looked more like this every single week, right? So it's kind of the like, here's what we're doing this week. Here's some tool, just happened to be Google LM the first week. And then every week they had 4 things to work on. So I made sure they recognized there were just 4 of them. And then I had things that were sort of like things to wonder about. The connections was just a Padlet. Rather than using Hypothesis, I used just a Google Doc to have them read and comment on stuff. And then these are all those tools. And the other piece that NotebookLM said to me was, hey, your students were looking at all these tools. Why didn't you try harder to make that a focus of the class in terms of like, this thing could be valuable to other people, which I did say many times, but it's interesting. Looking back, I probably could have said more frequently, like, hey, this class is going to make a resource for people in the field of nursing who need help with technology. I could have done that more often. Yeah, so I didn't. We have 10 minutes. They told me to stop at 10 minutes and answer questions. There's all the things you just saw. If you want to go look. I think it has some possibility. You know, let's learn from our students how we can improve the class and sprinkle a little AI into that whole space. I feel like that's what I have to share. Any questions?
I have a question while everybody's thinking of their own. For that last class that you just showed, was that for faculty or was that a class that you were teaching?
It was a graduate course for nurses. So, you know, yeah, that's a great question. The context was graduate course for nursing students, and largely they were all full-time jobs in either K-12 environments as nurses or in hospitals. And if you've ever worked with nursing students, they're like on top of things all the time. Like,
Oh yeah,
hyper
I work with my nursing faculty and they talk about their students and their students are like, if something in Canvas doesn't have a due date on it, like that's a big problem because they're like everything is like on a list. I'm curious because something like Google Sites is something as an instructional designer at Clover Park Technical College, something that we're interested in getting our faculty on board with so that they could also implement something similar with their students. I know it's not really directly related to what you were talking about in this presentation, but what were the levels of familiarity with using something like Google Sites as a portfolio, or and then how did you help them to get on board with that?
Yeah, you know, Google Sites. I mean, Google Sites is like the Google homepage. Like, there's just not a lot of options. It just says type some word here and that's it, right? Google Sites doesn't have very many options. That's part of the beauty of it, but also part of the challenge, right? I prefer WordPress in my own work. You know, my work lives on a good day right here, and that's a WordPress site, right? So, and I have more experience teaching out of WordPress than I do Google. I'd never taught a class out of Google Sites, so it was kind of fun. Nice. It's easy to use. Like many people, there's the early adopters and there's the middle group, and then there's kind of the people who struggle maybe for whatever reason a little more. My class was just like that. I would say that they all learned Google Sites very quickly. Part of their interaction piece was pretty simple because like it was 1, 2, 3, 4, click here underneath the 1, and that's where you got to do your stuff, you know. So Todd's kind of less is more ultra simple design philosophy is pretty evident in that class.
Okay, yeah, I like that. I agree. I don't think there's much of a learning curve once you get in there. Like once you get people, like every time somebody gets to a new like interface, they're what do I do? Where's all this stuff? But everything's like nicely lined up on the side, and we're trying to work with e-portfolios in our college, and so I was just curious about how Google Sites and how that process of getting people on board with that worked for you. So
yeah, I mean, Google Sites honestly like is just a vehicle for quickly creating a place where the stuff is kind of my go-to tool here in the last 2-3 years. Prior to that, it was like always WordPress, and prior to that, it was always Blogger or Blogspot.
can I ask you, this is going to tie into AI. Have you experimented with Notion at all? I've been looking into Notion and trying to see if I could create a course in Notion as a template so that people can copy the template so that everything's there. It's almost like a Google site where like if you were to copy a Google site and everything's already there, and then they would just go in and kind of fill in everything. And they have that AI capability embedded in Notion as well.
Yeah, yeah. I am not Notion literate, though the link there around creative pedagogies, one of the people I was kind of dreamt that up with was Natalie Tassler at the University of Glasgow. And one of the things she used for this like month of creative pedagogy thing that we did was Notion. And I really had never seen it before. I tried to do something for the class I taught with it, and I don't know. I couldn't quite figure it out how it was going to work in the context of the class, which
Yeah, when I was originally thinking about adding it into our Learn AI program, I was like, this seems like it would be something good for people to use. It's kind of a like it's kind of an everything site where and it's really easy to add pages and add things within pages, and like it was a little overwhelming for me at first, but since I've been in there and kind of playing around with it a little bit more, I think there's some value in learning how to use that tool.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. The whole liquid syllabus thing is a great like easy pathway to get faculty to go, that's interesting. And that's linked in the syllabus thing, what the first session in there, but there's also some amazing examples of like how you can reshape your syllabus on a Google site. There's 100 examples of those in there. And that's an easy inroad because nobody reads my syllabus is kind of a classic refrain, and they just keep adding more things to the PDF document as the result.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah, luckily we just got a simple syllabus at our school, so there's like a little thing that like tracks people who have checked it and like how far they've gone through it. But
That's interesting. I don't know that one. Well,
yeah.
listen, amazing tool. The more you experience hearing about the great work that you do, number one, yay, because you do great work. That feels good. Let's be that. You can hear it even though it's an AI voice, it still feels good, right? I think that's an important thing to think about. This is the site I basically created for this presentation. I'm sorry I don't have any PowerPoint slides, but I do have examples of what I spoke about just now and kind of the story I just told you in one page, weirdly, in a Google site, right? So you can share that with anybody you want. And if you can stand listening to the whole reggae song, more power to you. But yeah, that's what I got. If I'm super connectable, here's my email address. If you feel like I can do or help in any way, I'd love to chat anytime. By anything these days, I'm open and available to help. So,
All right.
there you go.
Well, thank you, Todd. That was really great. And I hope if anybody hasn't heard of NotebookLM, then they'll go in and try it out, because I've been in there and I keep recommending it to people. And it seems like everybody loves it when they get to try it out. So thank you, Todd. I'm going to put the link in the chat, everybody, for the lobby if you want to go ahead and hop back in there. Take a couple minutes before the next session. We got the next session coming soon, but Todd Conaway, thanks again for presenting.
You bet. Thank you very much.